While Tiberius shut himself away on the island of Capri, the beating heart of the Roman Empire continued to throb in the city of Rome. Senators debated in the Curia. Soldiers marched on distant frontiers, and the people filled the markets with their daily gossip. But over all of it hung a dark cloud. A rule of fear that stretched from the emperor's distant villa to the streets of the capital. Rome, once the center of the known world, now lived in the shadows of Capri. At the center of this shadow stood one man, Lucius Sejanus. As prefect of the Praetorian Guard, Sejanus commanded the emperor's personal soldiers, the elite force sworn to protect the ruler of Rome. In practice, this gave him extraordinary power. The Praetorians were not just bodyguards. They were the empire's secret police, enforcers, and political kingmakers. With Tiberius absent on Capri, Sejanus stepped into the void, becoming the face of imperial authority. Sejanus was no ordinary officer. He was ambitious, cunning, and ruthless. Born not into noble blood, but into the equestrian class, he rose by sheer skill and careful calculation. He flattered Tiberius, earning his trust, and presented himself as the emperor's most loyal servant. To the Senate, he appeared as the voice of Tiberius. To the people, he was the hand of power. But beneath his loyalty lay a hunger for greater things. By AD 23, Sejanus had consolidated his control. He reorganized the Praetorian Guard, concentrating them into a single fortified camp on the outskirts of Rome. A bold move that gave him direct military influence over the capital. He cultivated alliances with senators, eliminated rivals through whispers of treason, and spread fear across the empire. Trials for maestas, or crimes against the majesty of the emperor, became common. Senators, generals, even ordinary citizens could be accused of speaking ill of Tiberius. The punishment was often death, and the accuser often gained rewards. Suspicion and betrayal flourished like weeds. Meanwhile, the emperor remained on Capri, sending orders through letters carried across the sea. These letters often condemned men he had never seen, based solely on the reports Sejanus delivered. The Senate, too terrified to resist, voted for executions, confiscations, and Rome became a city where silence was safety, and every word might be overheard by an informer. It was during this time that Tiberius' reputation sank to its lowest point. To the Roman people, he was a ghost emperor, a man who abandoned the city and ruled from the shadows. Festivals grew fewer, public games were neglected, and the generosity of Augustus was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was fear. Fear of the emperor, fear of Sejanus, fear of one's own friends and family. The personal tragedies of Tiberius only deepened the gloom. His son, Drusus the Younger, once seen as his heir, died in AD 23. Some whisper that Sejanus himself poisoned Drusus in order to clear his own path to power. Whether true or not, the death left Tiberius isolated, bitter, and more dependent on Sejanus than ever. The prefect's grip tightened, and with each passing year, the empire seemed less like the rule of a Caesar and more like the dictatorship of a guard commander. But ambition has a way of overreaching. By the late 20s AD, Sejanus' hunger for power could no longer be hidden. He sought to marry into the imperial family, aligning himself with Tiberius' relatives. He courted senators openly, acting less like a servant and more like a successor. Rumors swirled that he dreamed of becoming emperor himself. For a time, it seemed possible. Tiberius, aging and reclusive on Capri, might simply allow his prefect to inherit the empire. Then, suddenly, the balance shifted. In AD 31, whispers reached Capri that Sejanus' ambitions had gone too far. Tiberius, perhaps suspicious at last, perhaps nudged by loyal advisors, turned against the man who had once been his closest ally. In a stunning move, he sent secret instructions to the Senate. On October 18th, Sejanus was summoned under the pretense of receiving new honors. Instead, the Senate read out the emperor's letter, condemning him as a traitor. The Praetorians, confused and leaderless, did not intervene. Sejanus was seized, dragged to prison, and executed that very day. The fall of Sejanus sent shockwaves through Rome. His statutes were toppled, his allies hunted, and his family destroyed. Those who once praised him now rushed to denounce him, desperate to prove their loyalty to Tiberius. But the purge did not stop with Sejanus' death. Tiberius, ever suspicious, launched a wave of trials and executions, determined to root out every last supporter of his fallen prefect. The shadows over Rome grew darker still. Capri remained the emperor's fortress, but now it was also his throne of vengeance. Letters from the island dictated death after death. Senators were executed, nobles exiled, families ruined. The empire seemed governed not by law, but by paranoia. Ancient writers describe these years as a reign of terror, a time when fear itself ruled Rome. And yet, beneath the terror, the empire continued to function. Roads were built, provinces governed, and armies supplied. Trade flowed through the Mediterranean, and life went on for ordinary Romans. To the farmer in Gaul or the merchant in Egypt, Tiberius' isolation mattered little. But in Rome itself, in the heart of power, loomed large.